I decided to do another live recording, just me rambling about my upcoming book, Who Am I? Um, in light of kind of some response to the critique I got in the first half. I brought it to my critique group I go to um, a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. I don't know, I guess. And I've been thinking about some of the stuff they said, but the question is raised, why now? I didn't fully answer why now in the writing. So I've thought about why am I writing a book about discovering my personal identity when I was a teenager if I'm 41 years old? Why now? Well, I touched on something that um, in the spring of last year, a little under a year ago, I got a divorce, and I'm off my own the first time. So first time really, I mean, because I went from being a kid in my parents' house, go to college, I lived in the dorm, and then I got married. So I never lived on my own. Um I never was as alone as I thought I was. Um because just never was. But this book's not about. It's not a divorce book. There are plenty of books about surviving divorce and stuff like that. It's about thinking about who I am and who am I. That's the question. Who am I? And you have to, when your identity is completely wrapped up in, because who I was a year ago, I was a husband, a provider, a father, a, you know, and I lived a different life. Um, I'm still a father, provide for myself. I had to come up with my own dreams, not dreams that included my wife. These are mine. I'm not part of a couple anymore. So it fractured my identity. I had to start over. And I think what made me who I am. And I go back to before I was married. Who am I? When I ask, who am I? That's why now. Because I have had to think about some stuff, in the last few months that I didn't have to think about for a long time. And it, you know, so I'm reflecting on things in my past that made me who I am and the shit that I went through. Now that sounds really dramatic when I say shit, because I've had a good life, lower middle class, but still, I had a roof over my head. I had 3 square meals. Sometimes they were um, repeat meals. I mean, I had the same thing over and over a lot of times when I was young, but I never went hungry. Um, Never went cold. Wasn't cold. I mean, I had a roof over my head and I had my own room, even. I mean, I had a good life, but it sucked at the same time. Okay, internally, a lot of suckage was going on. Um, Now it was brought to my attention, in my critique group, that I tend to liken being bullied as a nerd with the big isms like racism and sexism and the big things. And if you're a nerd, can you be dragged into your car and lynched? No, it's not racism, but it's still life and death. It's still an ism that's life and death. And the reason why I say life and death, because the suicide rate for outcasts, for nerds, for people who don't feel like they belong, is pretty high. And like, so many times people who suicide, the ones left behind say, "Oh, he didn't seem like that kind of guy. He seemed so happy," and because you've got to be. I mean, you've got to be happy, or at least pretend to be normal. I mean, whatever normal is. I like to say nobody knows what normal is, and there's not really such a thing as normal. It's life is a spectrum where some people are really one way, some people are really another way, but the majority of people are kind of in the middle. That's what normal is, just kind of in the middle. I digress. About it, life and death, suicide. The rates of people who feel outcasted, even if they're part of friends groups, but inside they feel something's. That suicide rate is huge. I'm writing this book not primarily to be a blockbuster or to make myself famous or anything. It's to help people. Because there are a lot of people who felt outcast, who feel outcast like I felt, The stereotypes are different now. Being a nerd's not as big of a deal as it probably used to be. So the stereotypes are looser, but the suicide rate's gone up. I mean, it's very complex, the stuff that's inside people. And mostly young people. I mean, it's not just for teenagers. I'm not just speaking to teenagers because I don't really think very many teenagers will read a book. But I hope it's shared with them. A little story. I hope some of the stories, some of the inclusivity, because everybody's worth being included. Everybody's worth it. Death is not a good option. I mean, and that's, I don't know. I didn't think, a few months ago when I started writing down this story about who am I didn't think it was going to be about suicide, but there it is, life and death. How many times did I feel like I didn't deserve to live? It's not too dramatic. I mean, I didn't attempt suicide. That was never the thing for me, because I was thankfully afraid of dying. I'm thankful now. See, I'm looking at it all in retrospect, but some of the people who hear my story, they're thinking about it right then, So I'm going to speak directly to these people too. You deserve to live. This will pass. As much suckiness as there is right now, it'll pass. And you might feel like you're outcasted, like you don't belong, but you belong to something. If you don't feel like it, there are places you can call. I mean, and this is the part of my book where I would include some resources to, Boys Town National Hotline used to be a pretty major one. I don't know if it still is, but they advertised. I remember back when I was a teenager, back in the 90s, they would advertise in comic books. The PSAs would be in comic books because it speaks directly, predominantly teenage boys, and but it's for anybody. And the ad had a picture of the Hulk or something, and it said like no problem's too big. One of those things because it's important. So I will have in my book probably have an appendix or something, appendix A, or it's resources, phone numbers, addresses, texting. There's a lot of um, I wouldn't do it myself, but some people, texting is a big deal for a lot of people, and they don't feel comfortable talking to somebody, but they'd feel comfortable texting somebody. There are helplines out there. So I'm gonna have an appendix in my book about resources for not just suicide. I don't want to be dramatic like that. Struggling, bullying, help with stuff, homework. That's a big deal because a lot of people feel hurt. They feel like they don't belong because they can't do. They got some kind of mental learning disorders, or I want to have resources for all kinds of people, not just for me. Because writing this book, it was personal writing therapy in a lot of ways, but I also want it to be a teaching tool because a lot of people, they need to know they're not alone. You belong. Don't deserve to be put in a box, especially not a pine box or whatever they make covens out of. I mean, not just keep fighting, keep at it, because life sucks sometimes, but you'll get through it. That's what I just want to say. So my Who Am I, the book, will become kind of an aid, a help to depressed people, to suicide people. A few years ago, I was working on a different book, and I was also telling stories, and I was vlogging a lot, and I made a mention that my book's kind of like written versions of my vlogs. And one of my buds, he was like, so why should I buy your book if you're giving it all away for free? And the thing is, I'm not giving it all away because my books are not a word-for-word transcript on vlogs. They're an edited down version or edited up version. I mean, it's more. The book is more than what I've said, because in one sitting you can't say everything. Yeah, stream of consciousness style kinda, except for it's edited. It's added to, it's rewritten, I try to clarify. Try to clarify because a lot of my talking is just rambling. You have to dig through a lot of crap to get to good parts. Sometimes everything I say is awesome. I'll say some awesome stuff for like a minute or two. I don't know, but usually you have to get through all the rambles, and my writing doesn't have as much rambles. I do go off on rabbit trails and stuff, but not as much as when I talk, because I've gotten a chance to reread and edit. So the point is reading my books plural, because this is kind of the first in a series. Yeah, I'm talking about identity and belonging, in relation to being depressed and suicidal. And I have other topics in my head that I want to get out eventually. So after Who Am I, there will be other books. Many, many other books, I think. Not huge, giant tomes, even though I could probably ramble and right. Also kind of whittle it down so where it kind of makes sense. But, yeah. Posting this.